The Draknid commander's secondary heart nearly stopped when his subordinate delivered the news. The crystalline being's facets flickered with anxiety as he processed the information. "You captured who?" "A human female, sir. Found her ship drifting in the Kirana Nebula. She claims to be nobody important, but our scans matched her genetic signature to Fleet Admiral Blackwood." Commander Zextal's crystalline form pulsed with deep crimson waves of distress. In 3 centuries of military service, he'd never encountered such a spectacular disaster in the making. Fleet Admiral Regina Blackwood was arguably the most dangerous human in the known galaxy. The legendary commander who had single-handedly ended the Silicon Wars by convincing an entire machine empire to surrender through pure force of personality. And now they had her daughter. "Have you lost your mind? Release her immediately." Zextal ordered, but the younger officer's facets dimmed apologetically. "We can't, sir. She's already escaped the holding cell. Twice. The second time she left a note saying the accommodations were cozy, but she preferred to explore the ship herself." A security alert blared through the vessel's neural network. The human female had been spotted in 3 different sections simultaneously. Either she could teleport, which wouldn't even be the strangest human ability Zextal had encountered, or she was deliberately toying with them. In the ship's engine room, Kirana Blackwood smirked as she planted another holographic projector. The Draknids were exactly as predictable as her intelligence suggested, so focused on their rigid hierarchies and protocols that they never considered someone might want to be captured. She didn't share her mother's gift for diplomatic manipulation or her father's legendary tactical genius. Kirana's talents lay in the art of misdirection. While the ship's security forces chased phantom images, she made her way to her real objective, the artifact vault. The Draknids were notorious collectors of pre-collapse technology, and this particular battlecruiser was rumored to have recently acquired something special. Something that, if her sources were correct, could change the balance of power in the galaxy. Her wrist computer chimed softly. Right on schedule, the Draknid command staff was holding an emergency meeting to discuss their crisis. In exactly 3 minutes, they would realize they needed to contact Fleet Admiral Blackwood. In 5 minutes, they would discover their long-range communications were mysteriously malfunctioning. And in 10 minutes, well, that's when the real fun would begin. "Your daughter is where?" Admiral Blackwood's voice was dangerously calm as she received the news in her flagship's command center. The holographic display showed the Draknid vessel's location, blinking innocently in the heart of their territory. The junior communications officer swallowed hard. "She appears to have orchestrated her own capture, Admiral. The Draknids are rather distressed about it." Regina Blackwood rubbed her temples, feeling a headache building. She'd hoped Kirana would outgrow this phase of creating international incidents for fun, but at 28, her daughter seemed more determined than ever to give her grey hairs. "Plot an intercept course," she ordered, then added with a resigned sigh, "but keep our weapons powered down. Knowing my daughter, this is all part of some ridiculously overcomplicated plan that will either save the galaxy or start an interstellar incident. Possibly both." As her flagship jumped to faster-than-light speed, Regina allowed herself a small smile. Kirana might drive her crazy, but she had to admit, life was never boring with her around. Besides, this wouldn't even make the top 5 most dramatic family reunions they'd had this year. Aboard the Draknid vessel, Kirana had finally reached her goal. The artifact vault's security was impressive, if you were trying to break in from the outside. But when you had spent 3 months studying Draknid security protocols, and another 2 weeks planting false intelligence reports that would ensure your capture, by exactly the right ship. Well, things became considerably simpler. "I have to admit," she muttered as she worked, "they really do have a lovely collection here. Almost feel bad about what's going to happen to it." The vault door slid open with a satisfying hiss, revealing rows of strange and wonderful artifacts from across the galaxy. But Kirana only had eyes for one, a small, unassuming cube that pulsed with a soft blue light. As she reached for it, an alarm finally blared, a real one this time. She grinned, right on schedule. "Warning," the ship's AI announced. "Unknown vessels detected. Multiple signatures. Correction, multiple human signatures detected." The cube felt warm in her hand as she slipped it into her pocket. Phase 1 was complete. Now came the truly difficult part, explaining to her mother exactly why this particular artifact was worth risking an interstellar diplomatic crisis. Assuming, of course, that her mother didn't ground her first. Being the daughter of the galaxy's most dangerous human had its drawbacks. The cube hummed against Kirana's hip as she raced through the Draknid battlecruiser's twisting corridors. Each vibration sent shivers of ancient power through her bones, confirmation that every rumor, every classified report, every whispered legend about this artifact was true. The precursor device wasn't just powerful, it was alive. Fleet Admiral Blackwood's voice echoed through the ship's communications system, carrying that particular tone of maternal exasperation that Kirana knew all too well. "Attention, Draknid vessel. This is Admiral Blackwood of the Terran Fleet. I believe you have something that belongs to me." Mother always did have a flair for dramatic timing, Kirana muttered, ducking into a maintenance shaft as another patrol rushed past. She checked her wrist computer. 3 minutes until the device's containment field would need recalibrating. If she didn't make it to her extraction point by then, well, she'd always wanted to know if the stories about spontaneous quantum tunneling were true. Commander Zextal's crystalline form vibrated with barely contained panic as he faced the holographic projection of humanity's most feared military leader. "Admiral Blackwood, I assure you this is all a misunderstanding. Your daughter is exactly where she plans to be," Regina finished, her steel-grey eyes twinkling with an unsettling mixture of pride and annoyance. "The question is, Commander, are you aware of what else is on your ship?" The Draknid commander's facets flickered in confusion. "I don't." An explosion rocked the vessel before he could finish. Emergency containment fields snapped into place as warning klaxons blared. But these weren't from Kirana's carefully orchestrated distractions. These were real. In the artifact vault, ancient security systems were waking up. "Fascinating," Kirana breathed, watching through a maintenance grating as geometric patterns of light crawled across the vault's walls. The cube's vibrations had reached a fever pitch, resonating with something deep within the ship. The vault itself is precursor technology. The Draknids built their entire ship around it without even realizing. Her wrist computer chimed another warning. The containment field was failing faster than expected. She needed to move. Above, on the bridge, chaos reigned. Commander Zextal watched in horror as system after system fell under the influence of the awakening precursor technology. "What's happening to my ship?" Admiral Blackwood's hologram smiled grimly. "Commander, did you ever wonder why humans survived first contact with the precursors when so many other species didn't? Why we alone seemed compatible with their technology?" The deck plates beneath Zextal's feet began to ripple like liquid metal. "What have you done?" "Me? Nothing. My daughter, on the other hand." Regina's smile widened. "She's about to save your entire species, whether you want her to or not." In the bowels of the ship, Kirana finally reached her destination, the main engineering hub. Ancient symbols pulsed across every surface now, growing stronger as she approached with the cube. The Draknid engineers had evacuated, leaving her alone with the awakening heart of a precursor vault. "Right then," she muttered, pulling out the cube. "Time to have a chat with your makers." The cube split open in her hands, unfurling like a mechanical flower. Inside was not technology as most species understood it, but something far older, far stranger. A single strand of DNA, perfectly preserved for 50,000 years. Kirana inserted the sample into the ship's analyzing matrix, her fingers flying across the holographic interface. The Draknids had been dying for centuries, their crystalline forms growing increasingly unstable with each generation. They blamed human expansion, environmental changes, even solar radiation. But Kirana had found the truth buried in ancient precursor records. The Draknids weren't dying. They were transforming, just as humanity had transformed after their own encounter with precursor technology millennia ago. The cube contained the key to stabilizing that transformation, if they could survive the process. That's why she'd arranged her own capture. Why she'd needed this specific ship, with its hidden precursor vault. The Draknids would never have accepted help willingly. Their pride wouldn't allow it. Sometimes the only way to save someone was to let them think they'd caught you. As the DNA sequence initialized, Kirana sent a message to her mother. "Package delivered. You might want to back up a bit. This could get bright." The last thing Commander Zextal saw before his world dissolved in golden light was Admiral Blackwood's knowing smile. "Don't worry, Commander. The first metamorphosis is always the most dramatic. Welcome to evolution." And across the ship, 10,000 Draknid crystals began to sing. Golden light bathed the sector as 10,000 Draknid souls underwent their metamorphosis. Regina Blackwood watched from her flagship's bridge, her expression unreadable as the crystalline battlecruiser transformed before her eyes, its hull flowing like quicksilver. "Status report," she commanded. "Quantum readings off the scale, Admiral. The precursor matrix is. It's rewriting their entire cellular structure. But it's stable. Whatever Kirana did, it's working." Regina allowed herself a small breath of relief. Her daughter's theories had been correct. The Draknids weren't dying out. They were entering a chrysalis stage, just as humanity had done during the first metamorphosis. But political shockwaves were already spreading. 3 Draknid battle fleets had dropped out of hyperspace on the sector's edge, their commanders undoubtedly confused and angry about the unauthorized evolution of their brethren. "Open a channel to the Draknid High Command," Regina ordered. "And someone please tell my daughter to stop playing with 50,000-year-old technology and get back to her ship." In the transformed battlecruiser's engineering bay, Kirana stood surrounded by newly metamorphosed Draknids. Their crystalline forms had become fluid, iridescent, capable of shifting between solid and energy states at will. Commander Zextal's consciousness flickered through patterns of light as he tested his new form. "You knew," he accused, his voice resonating through quantum frequencies. "Your entire species knew what we were becoming." "We suspected," Kirana corrected. "But we couldn't be certain until we found the original template, the DNA sequence the precursors used to guide their own evolution. That's what I needed your vault to confirm. And now? What happens to my people now?" Before Kirana could answer, her mother's voice cut through the ship's systems. "What happens now, Commander, is that your people have a choice. The same choice humanity faced 10,000 years ago. Evolution isn't just physical. It's political, social, spiritual. The question isn't what you've become. It's what you'll choose to be." The approaching Draknid fleets had dropped into normal space, their weapons charged. On 1,000 worlds, Draknid elders were awakening to strange new sensations as the metamorphosis spread through quantum entanglement. "They're scared," Kirana observed. "Just like we were." Regina's voice softened. "Commander Zextal, I'm transmitting coordinates to a system we call Haven. It's where humanity underwent our own transformation. Its quantum fields are stabilizing. Your people will be safe there while they adjust." "And if we refuse?" "Then you refuse. We're not here to force evolution on anyone. But the process has begun. The only question is whether you face it alone or with the help of those who've gone before." Sextal's form rippled as he processed this. Around him, his crew were discovering their new abilities, shifting through quantum states, communicating through light itself. They were becoming something ancient and new all at once. "The High Command will not be pleased," he noted. Kirana grinned. "High Command is probably a bit busy right now, discovering they can phase through walls. Politics gets complicated when your entire species suddenly develops quantum superposition." Warning signals flashed across the bridge displays. The Draknid fleets were moving into attack formation. Old protocols dying hard. "Last chance, Commander," Regina announced. "Haven or chaos. Your choice." Zextal's consciousness expanded, touching each member of his crew, feeling their mix of fear and exhilaration. They had spent centuries believing they were dying, only to discover they were being reborn. "Plot a course for Haven," he decided. "And Admiral? Next time your daughter wants to catalyze a species-wide metamorphosis, perhaps you could just ask." The tension broke as laughter rippled across quantum frequencies. But beneath the humor, ancient forces were stirring. The Precursor's final gift was being opened, one species at a time. And in the transformed battlecruiser's heart, Kirana Blackwood smiled, already planning her next impossible mission. After all, the Draknids weren't the only species approaching their evolutionary crossroads. The galaxy was about to become a much more interesting place. The Haven system blazed with quantum energy as thousands of newly metamorphosed Draknids learned to control their transformed bodies. But not everyone welcomed evolution's touch. High Marshal Vexnor, Supreme Commander of the Draknid fleet, watched the transformation of his species with mounting horror from his fortress monastery on Draknid Prime. His crystalline form remained stubbornly solid, untouched by the change sweeping through his people. "Heresy," he whispered, watching recordings of his transformed brethren shifting through quantum states. "The humans have corrupted our purity." His private chambers filled with the projected forms of other resistance leaders, conservative elders who had somehow blocked the metamorphosis through sheer force of will. They flickered with deep crimson patterns of rage. "The traitor Zextal leads more of our people to Haven each day," one reported. "Over 60% of our population has undergone the transformation. Then we must act now, before we lose the rest." Vexnor's form pulsed with determination. "Ready the purification fleet." Aboard the transformed battlecruiser, now renamed Chrysalis, Kirana worked with Zextal's crew, teaching them to harness their new abilities. The ship itself had become a living thing, its precursor heart fully awakened. "Quantum displacement isn't just about moving through space," she explained, demonstrating as her form shifted through multiple states simultaneously. "It's about moving through possibility." The precursors discovered that consciousness itself is quantum. A warning pulse rippled through the ship's neural network. Zextal materialized beside her, his energy form agitated. The conservatives are making their move. Vexnor has assembled a fleet of over 3,000 ships. They're calling for the purification of our species. Kirana's expression hardened. How many of them have actively resisted the change? Less than 5%. But they control nearly 40% of our military assets. And they're willing to use them against their own people. Kirana accessed the ship's quantum communications array, linking to her mother's flagship. We have a problem. Regina Blackwood's hologram appeared, looking unsurprised. Civil war. The worst kind, evolutionary civil war. We need to evacuate as many of the transformed as we can, but Vexnor's forces are moving to blockade major population centers. The Admiral's expression turned grim. History repeating itself. We faced the same crisis during our metamorphosis. The purifiers nearly destroyed Earth trying to save humanity from evolution. Zextal's form rippled with concern. How did you stop them? We didn't. We let them fire their weapons. Let them see that the transformed couldn't be killed, only scattered into quantum probability, always reforming. Sometimes the only way to end a fight is to let your opponent punch themselves out. Kirana shook her head. That won't work here. Vexnor's studying the quantum readings. He's developing weapons that could actually disrupt the transform's ability to reintegrate. We need another solution. Warning signals flashed as the first shots were fired in the Draknid civil war. On colonies across the sector, conservative forces moved against their transformed brethren. But they found their targets frustratingly difficult to capture. Quantum beings could exist in multiple places simultaneously, after all. There might be a way, Zextal said slowly. The precursor vault, it didn't just transform us. It awakened something older. Something that's been sleeping in our collective unconscious for millennia. Kirana's eyes widened as she grasped his meaning. The ancestral memory. Every Draknid carries it, transformed or not. If we could activate it shipwide, we could show them what we truly are, what we were always meant to become. Kirana's fingers flew across the quantum interface. We need to modify the awakening sequence, broadcast it through the entire sector. And hope they're willing to remember, Regina added softly. Hope is quantum too, after all. As Vexnor's purification fleet approached Haven, Kirana and Zextal worked frantically to reprogram the precursor vault. They had one chance to prevent a war that could tear spacetime itself. Sometimes evolution needed a gentle reminder of where it had been to see where it was going. As Vexnor's purification fleet dropped out of hyperspace above Haven, the quantum-entangled message was ready. Kirana stood in Chrysalis's heart, her hand hovering over the activation sequence, while Zextal's consciousness merged with the ship's awakened systems. All transformed vessels, scatter formation, Admiral Blackwood commanded. Do not engage. Let them come to us. The massive purification fleet moved into attack position, their weapons charged with quantum-disrupting energy. High Marshal Vexnor's voice boomed across all frequencies. Surrender the human witch and return to your pure forms, or be cleansed. Kirana smiled. Ready for a family reunion, Marshal. She activated the sequence. The precursor vault pulsed, sending waves of ancestral memory cascading through quantum space. Every Draknid, transformed or not, felt the pull of ancient knowledge awakening. They saw their true origins, not as crystalline beings, but as creatures of pure quantum possibility. The precursors hadn't altered them. They'd merely reminded them of what they once were, what they were always meant to become again. Vexnor's flagship shuddered as the memories hit. He saw his ancestors dancing through probability clouds, their consciousness spanning multiple realities at once. The crystalline form had been a hibernation stage, a chrysalis to protect them through the long dark ages between galactic cycles. Impossible, he whispered, but his own body was already beginning to shift, responding to memories older than time. Across his fleet, weapons powered down as crews embraced their transformation. The resistance had been born of fear. Fear of change, fear of the unknown. But how could they fear what they had always been? Kirana watched through quantum space as the last holdouts transformed. Sometimes the hardest part of evolution is remembering we were never really separate. Not from each other, not from the universe itself. Regina's flagship moved alongside Chrysalis. Well done, both of you. Though next time, daughter mine, perhaps we could handle species-wide metamorphosis with slightly less drama. Where's the fun in that? Kirana grinned. Besides, we're not done yet. The Draknids weren't the only species the precursors prepared for ascension. There are others out there, waiting to remember who they really are. Zextal's consciousness rippled with curiosity. You mean to awaken them all? The galaxy's entering a new phase. The old boundaries between matter and energy, space and time, consciousness and reality, they're breaking down. We can either help guide that transformation or let chaos reign. Regina sighed. I suppose this means you'll be needing an expanded mission budget. Consider it an investment in galactic evolution, Kirana suggested innocently. After all, someone needs to be there to say welcome to the family when new siblings wake up. As the transformed Draknid fleet reorganized under Zextal's command, Kirana already had her eyes on the next horizon. Somewhere out there, another species was approaching their evolutionary crossroads. Another family waiting to remember who they were. The universe was vast, but consciousness was vaster still. And in the quantum dance of reality, every awakening sent ripples through the cosmic sea, calling others to remember their own true nature. The age of separation was ending. The age of remembrance had begun. Above Haven, the combined fleet of transformed vessels pulsed with quantum light, a beacon to all who would soon follow. The next chapter in galactic evolution was just beginning. And Kirana Blackwood, daughter of humanity's greatest admiral, troublemaker extraordinaire, and midwife to awakening species, couldn't wait to see what happened next. After all, family reunions were always more interesting when they spanned multiple dimensions of reality. The stars themselves seemed to twinkle in agreement, as if remembering they too were part of this grand cosmic dance of evolution and awakening. The future was quantum, and every possibility was about to bloom. As Vexenor's purification fleet dropped out of hyperspace above Haven, the quantum-entangled message was ready. Kirana stood in Chrysalis's heart, her hand hovering over the activation sequence, while Zextal's consciousness merged with the ship's awakened systems. All transformed vessels, scatter formation, Admiral Blackwood commanded. Do not engage. Let them come to us. The massive purification fleet moved into attack position, their weapons charged with quantum-disrupting energy. High Marshal Vexenor's voice boomed across all frequencies. Surrender the human witch and return to your pure forms, or be cleansed. Kirana smiled. Ready for a family reunion, Marshal. She activated the sequence. The precursor vault pulsed, sending waves of ancestral memory cascading through quantum space. Every Draknid, transformed or not, felt the pull of ancient knowledge awakening. They saw their true origins, not as crystalline beings, but as creatures of pure quantum possibility. The precursors hadn't altered them. They'd merely reminded them of what they once were, what they were always meant to become again. Vexenor's flagship shuddered as the memories hit. He saw his ancestors dancing through probability clouds, their consciousness spanning multiple realities at once. The crystalline form had been a hibernation stage, a chrysalis to protect them through the long dark ages between galactic cycles. Impossible, he whispered, But his own body was already beginning to shift, responding to memories older than time. Across his fleet, weapons powered down as crews embraced their transformation. The resistance had been born of fear, fear of change, fear of the unknown. But how could they fear what they had always been? Kirana watched through quantum space as the last holdouts transformed. Sometimes the hardest part of evolution is remembering we were never really separate. Not from each other, not from the universe itself. Regina's flagship moved alongside Chrysalis. Well done, both of you. Though next time, daughter mine, perhaps we could handle species-wide metamorphosis with slightly less drama. Where's the fun in that? Kirana grinned. Besides, we're not done yet. The Draknids weren't the only species the precursors prepared for ascension. There are others out there waiting to remember who they really are. Zextal's consciousness rippled with curiosity. You mean to awaken them all? The galaxy's entering a new phase. The old boundaries between matter and energy, space and time, consciousness and reality, they're breaking down. We can either help guide that transformation or let chaos reign. Regina sighed. I suppose this means you'll be needing an expanded mission budget. Consider it an investment in galactic evolution, Kirana suggested innocently. After all, someone needs to be there to say welcome to the family when new siblings wake up. As the transformed Draknid fleet reorganized under Zextal's command, Kirana already had her eyes on the next horizon. Somewhere out there, another species was approaching their evolutionary crossroads. Another family waiting to remember who they were. The universe was vast, but consciousness was vaster still. And in the quantum dance of reality, every awakening sent ripples through the cosmic sea, calling others to remember their own true nature. The age of separation was ending. The age of remembrance had begun. Above Haven, the combined fleet of transformed vessels pulsed with quantum light, a beacon to all who would soon follow. The next chapter in galactic evolution was just beginning. And Kirana Blackwood, daughter of humanity's greatest admiral, troublemaker extraordinaire, and midwife to awakening species, couldn't wait to see what happened next. After all, family reunions were always more interesting when they spanned multiple dimensions of reality. The stars themselves seemed to twinkle in agreement, as if remembering they too were part of this grand cosmic dance of evolution and awakening. The future was quantum, and every possibility was about to bloom.